Hello and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready. Drake's not here this time because we're going to be talking about just a little bit of painting. And I'm not a great painter, not even really a good painter, especially at the time of recording this. The Adepticon winners were announced, and there are, just amazing artists out there. Amazing. But this channel isn't parade ready, this channel is battle ready. And so when I'm painting up the models, I want them to look good, I want them to get to a tabletop quality, and I want them to enhance my enjoyment of the game. And while the game works fine, there's nothing wrong with having gray models, for me, having painted models on the mat just evokes more of the narrative. It increases the enjoyment. I am a little bit more invested in how things go. It's really fun. But that changes a little bit when it comes to terrain. So not too long ago, Drake got the Kill Team box. He's very interested in 40K lore. I don't know how interested he is in playing, but he is interested in the lore. And so for his birthday, he got the Kill Team box. He was incredibly excited. And he's been building up his orc commandos. He built all the terrain. And then it came time to start painting. And he was not looking forward to painting the big pieces of orc terrain. I mean, it's a bigger project. And I think he really enjoys painting when it's a small project he can complete relatively quickly. And this didn't seem that way to him first. And when it's something that he can really get excited about, when he can see it in his mind, oh, I'm painting these trolls, I'm painting these squigs. I can already see how cool they're gonna look on the table. And these are just, they're ramshackle buildings, right? So it doesn't quite have that same excitement level. And he asked me if I would paint them. And so I said, sure, right? I can paint them. And even though I paint everything to sort of a tabletop battle ready standard, I actually, when it comes to terrain, I sort of go one half step below that. What you might call the presentable standard, maybe. I don't know. But what I mean by that is the terrain is, to me, boring to paint, so I certainly understand where Drake's coming from on that. But I also just feel like, it's not the centerpiece. When the stuff's on the table, the models and the armies and the glory of the different things moving around and fighting each other, that's telling the tale. And the scenery is there to, it's a backdrop. And now painted scenery is better, because that's keeps you in the immersion, and whereas something that's gray or something that looks sort of cruddy can take you out of it a little bit. But that's all I need from the scenery. All I need is for the scenery to not distract, right? I don't need it to be the coolest thing that there ever was, or the grandest thing, or have micro layering techniques on all the different pieces. No, forget that noise. And so I thought I would just go over how I painted up these guys and what you can do. Because if you are new to the hobby, and if you're like me and you can maybe be a little intimidated by by terrain, which is bigger, and especially if you don't have an airbrush, I don't have an airbrush, then these can actually be a little intimidating. And I want to just sort of describe how I did it. And as I talk about it, I'll also put up on the screen some sort of close-up pictures, because these, I don't know if the camera's gonna catch all the little things I'm gonna talk about here, so you'll see closer pictures up on the screen. But basically, look, these things are giant metal constructs, and I did not want to use up all of my metal, silver, or plate mail, or gunmetal paint on these giant things. So I was looking to prime them in a way that would have the metal on them. I initially primed them gray, just thinking I would paint them, but once I saw the scale of it, I thought, I'm not using up all my expensive tiny acrylic miniature paint on these things. So what I did was I went to the local big box home improvement store and got Rust-Oleum Metallic. It's a silver finish. I don't think they have a plate mail at Rust-Oleum, but what they do have is cans of paint that are $5. And I recognize that Citadel, Games Workshop has a lead belcher spray. I think Army Painter has a plate mail spray, but they're more than $5. And because it's terrain, I'm just not looking to spend a lot of money. I want to get it presentable at as low a cost as possible. So $5. I sprayed them up, and this, by the way, is very shiny. They show a little on the can here, a little silver decoration around a clock. It's shiny. It looks pretty silvery. So when I first sprayed it, I was a little bit worried that I had made a boo-boo. But it actually turned out well, and it saved me a ton of paint. So once I have that acrylic paint, what I decided to do was I got out a bunch of little metal acrylic paints from Army Painter and Citadel and just started going to town. So I used my darker one here, and then I decided, okay, these panels with the hatches, those are going to be this color, this one's going to be this color, and that way it makes it look a little bit more slapdash or ramshackle. Same on this one. I did paint a little bit of the inside in a couple of places, just of the metal colors, just to give it so it wouldn't be so uniform if you happen to be looking at it. But from the tabletop, I didn't paint the, see that's, silver's actually shinier than that. I'll get to that later. But I didn't paint the top at all. No one's gonna see that. On the table, you're gonna be looking down sort of from that angle. And so you might see a little bit of this low stuff on the back, which is why I painted a couple things to keep the visual interest there. But otherwise, I'm not putting in effort on terrain. It's getting presentable quality only. Then once I did that, I decided, all right, I want to have some color. So in both cases, on this one, I used a metal on this side, and then on this side, I just started using contrast paints. Here's Grifthound Orange. I used red for these little decorations. I did green. I think I did Militarum green for this gas can thing, and then a little bit of blue. On this one, I used that same green, but here I used Nasdrag yellow for these panels. I think that's orange again, Grifthound Orange. I wanted to stick to mostly warmer tones. I have a couple of cool colors in there, here and there, but mostly warmer. I don't know, orcs just feel warmer. Like what they ramshackle build together just feels like it should be warmer. I don't know. And so same thing. Then once I did all those contrast colors, and now the interesting thing about it is with this particular spray, it made, and it's probably intended, given its use, or its intended use, is it made the silver was very hydrophobic. So it made the contrast colors want to bead and pool up a little bit, and it made me use a couple more, slop on a little bit more than I was intending to, but it looked okay. And then, but the nice thing was, even after I got a pretty good coat, and I don't know if you probably can't see this, but maybe when I put the picture up, right around the edges, it still pulled away a little bit, and it gave almost a natural highlight of where, like a chipping effect. So even without me having to go through and put paint on a sponge and then dab it on, which can look really good, the natural hydrophobicness of the silver undercoat gave me that same effect, and it ended up looking really good. Once I had all the contrast paint took extra long to dry on it though, just as a consequence, so be prepared for that. Once I had the contrast paint on, I took some ivory color. I used Pro-Acryl Ivory, the Monument Hobbies Pro-Acryl, and it worked well. I'm trying to use some more of those paints because I hear good things about them, and so far I've had all good experiences. But I just used that to fill in the white faces so that those decorations were up. And then the last thing I did was black. And for black, I just took Army Painter Matte Black. I painted in the door, front and back, and then I painted the power cables. This one has sort of bigger power cables attaching these different things. I used basilicanum gray on that, again, contrast paint. Now, once the black was on there, it was basically done, except it was still super shiny, and it looked clean. It looked very clean. And the one thing we know is that orcs don't always, they're not the best housekeepers. So that didn't look right. So what I did, initially I was trying to make my own wash, and there's a couple of YouTube channels that tell you how to do that, and I was an abysmal failure at that. I didn't want to use my expensive acrylic, miniature paint washes, but I ended up having to because I was using up too much non-expensive stuff and not getting good results. So for this one, I used Army Painter Strong Tone, and it worked really, really, really good. I just slopped it all over the model, top, bottom, everywhere. Again, except for you can see this part's pretty clean, except for the top here, the underside. But everywhere else got a good coat. And the cool thing is when it went on basically like a wash on anything else, just covered everything, got into some of the recesses. But what was really cool is that bead up effect on the silver started to bead the little droplets, and then when it dried in this very natural looking, dirty grime look that really worked well. And I really like how it turned out. On this one, part of the reason I didn't want to use strong tone was because I was sort of running out, and I ran out. So I decided, I'll just use some dark tone, and we'll see how it goes. So I did that. I got mostly the same effect, although the dark tone makes it look dirtier, but maybe not grungier, if that makes any sense. Still did a good job of toning things down, and it's just completely marked up with splotches and marks and black bits everywhere that really make it look old and used. Now, once I had both of those things done, I decided, it still looks a little shiny. And when it comes to all my models, terrain or not terrain, I almost always will hit them with a clear matte spray. Again, I think I use Rust-Oleum, just a clear matte spray on top to sort of protect it and make sure my, especially particularly contrast paints, aren't getting rubbed off if I'm moving guys around with my fingers. So I sprayed these guys with that clear matte spray, and the matte spray did a tremendous job of toning down the shine. So now these metal just look like sort of a dullish steel. It still looks metal. It's still got a little shine to it. So you can tell that, I didn't just paint this gray, right? It's got a little shine to it, but at the same time, it's not that bright silver that came out of this can. It is something that makes a lot more sense in the world of kilting. So I wanted to share that. And I also found out that these things go together, which is pretty cool. But I just wanted to share that because, if you're just getting into the hobby, if you're pushing some models around, super duper fun, but terrain will make the experience better. And just like painted models they're just more fun to play with than gray models. The same is true of terrain. If you can get terrain that is presentable, is not going to win any golden demons. No one's going to come over and say, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. They're going to come over and say, cool, all right, let's play. And that's what the terrain is for. Terrain is just there so that it's not distracting. It doesn't have to be good or great or amazing. It just has to be not distracting. And both of these didn't take a long time. Spray cans and contrast paints for the most part. Really, anybody can do it. Because I'm the least artistic person I know, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. And so I just want to get that encouragement out there. If you're looking at terrain, you're thinking, I just don't know, go ahead and paint it up. It's gonna look great, and nobody's paying attention to the terrain. That's sort of the secret on the tabletop. People want to see your models. They want to see what, if you have a centerpiece, if you've got a Nagash or a a whatever, a big model, an L'Oreal, they want to see that and look at that and see how cool that is. Those ones you might want to spend a little bit more time with and sort of plan out a little bit better. But when it comes to terrain, couple quick passes and no one's going to give it a second thought. Hopefully, I hope that helps anybody. And if you have terrain philosophies, if you think terrain should be better than what I'm doing, or if you think terrain should be even worse, definitely interested to hear how you handle it on your tables and what you do to make your terrain to what you feel is a presentable level. Well, this has been another episode of Battle Ready, and thanks so much for watching.